This is a public service announcement brought to you by Hindsight. Relax, rest your eyes, and listen to the words of Pastor Chuck.
When a person makes predictions, it is easy to find out whether or not they are true or false prophet, and that is, does it come to pass? And if it doesn't come to pass, then it's very obvious they are a false prophet. If it comes to pass, then there are other tests that you should put before you're ready to accept them as a true prophet. But where do they, what are they teaching you to believe and trust in for your salvation? But here was an amazing prediction, and one that will establish whether or not Jesus is a true or a false prophet. Now, they were leaving the temple area. They went through the Kidron Valley over to the Mount of Olives, and there was a place that Jesus was accustomed to more or less stay on the Mount of Olives with his disciples, and we are told here that it was over against the temple. That is, they had a view of the temple from the place where they were sitting there at the Mount of Olives. And of course, from the Mount of Olives, you have a great view into the temple area, especially from the middle portion of the Mount of Olives. There's a path that comes down, and you get a grand view of the whole temple area. The large Temple Mount area and the buildings. And so Jesus was over there where they could look back down onto the Temple Mount, the temple and the buildings that were there. And Peter and James and John and Andrew, that is the brothers, Peter and Andrew, James and John, they came to Jesus privately and they said, "Lord, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when all of these things shall be fulfilled?" Now, Matthew tells us that they were asking for the signs of his coming again and the end of the age. But when shall these things be? When shall this destruction of the temple take place? So in this Olivet Discourse, you have actually prophecies that deal with the signs of the destruction of the temple. And then you have prophecies that deal with the signs of his coming and of the end of the Gentile age. And as I said, Matthew and Luke give to us fuller accounts of this Olivet Discourse. So Jesus, answering them, began to say, "Take heed lest any man deceive you." Now, one of the signs would be false messiahs, false Christ, deception. "For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am Christ,' or the Messiah, the Anointed One, 'and shall deceive many.'" I've often said that it is tragic what men will believe who have rejected the truth of Jesus Christ. If you want to just set yourself up as a sucker to believe anything, then just don't believe in Jesus. I mean, I look at these people who have rejected the knowledge of Jesus Christ. I look at the Hare Krishnas. I see them in their saffron robes. I see them with their finger symbols and their shaved heads. And I see them as they are dancing on the streets and so forth. And I think, what a tragedy. What foolish things people will believe who reject the truth of Jesus Christ. And the Lord sort of said that. In 2 Thessalonians, he said that because they would not receive the knowledge of the truth, God gave them over to a strong delusion that they would believe a lie rather than the truth. And you see people who are following after men who proclaim themselves to be Messiah. Take the case of Koresh there in Waco, Texas. Take Jimmy Jones in Ghana. And just more recently, this past week, the suicides of the people that were following this supposed charismatic leader. And it looks like maybe there was murder and suicides. But the things that people will believe when they reject the truth of God, God just gives them over to a delusion because they don't want the knowledge of the truth. God will allow them then to be gullible and to believe all kinds of fanciful nothings. And so Jesus warns first of those false religious systems that would proliferate. And when you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, don't be troubled. These things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. In other words, man has not, does not, and will not learn to live together in peace. How the idealists have so long advocated, hoped for, dreamed of a peaceful world. And how they've sought to bring to pass treaties that would bring peace to earth. And of course, development of the League of Nations, and more recently, the United Nations, and trying to establish a world type of government so that we can create world peace. But just look at our world today. Look at how troubled we are. Wars and rumors of wars, and right now rumors of wars again. But Jesus said those things are going to happen. The world, and I hate to explode any of your, oh no, I don't hate it. I like to burst your bubbles that are false. I mean, no sense living in an illusion. Or being deluded into thinking, oh, you know, every day and in every way the world is getting better and better and better. I had a grandmother used to tell me that, and it's not happening. It's not going to happen. The world is going to get worse and worse according to the scriptures. Evil days shall wax worse and worse. Was spoken of the last days, perilous times will come because men will be lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. And all of the consequences of man giving himself over to the flesh and the lust of the flesh until it becomes like it was in the days of Noah when everyone was doing that which was right in his own eyes. So don't live under a false illusion of thinking that we're on the verge of world peace, you know. In fact, Paul said when they begin to say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. So watch out for that peace cry. Jesus said you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, and that's going to go on and has gone on and shall go on until the Lord does come. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in diverse places. There shall be famines and troubles. And these are just the beginnings of sorrows. That is, the nations against nation, kingdoms against kingdoms, earthquakes in the diverse places, famines and pestilences. And of course, we are seeing our share of these things today, the beginning of sorrows. And so take heed to yourselves. Now, he is telling now the disciples the things that are going to be happening to them. This is prior to the destruction of the temple. They are going to deliver you up to the councils and to the synagogues, and you will be beaten, and you will be brought before the rulers and the kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. So he's saying, it's not going to be easy to be my disciple, to follow me. You're going to be persecuted. They're going to bring you before the religious councils. They're going to bring you before the rulers. They're going to beat you. All of this will be done for my sake. And so we do read in Acts, the 4th chapter, when Peter and John were beaten and commanded not to preach anymore in the name of Jesus. They went their way rejoicing that they were accounted worthy to suffer persecution for Jesus Christ. No doubt remembering these words of Jesus as they were being beaten, thought, yep, Lord told us. He's a prophet. Here it is. So the gospel must first be published among all nations.
You have been listening to Pastor Chuck. This public service announcement has been brought to you by Hindsight. If you found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment if you wish. We at Hindsight says, thank you for your time.